Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1998 Represent. On this episode, we're taking a look at Adore by the Smashing Pumpkins. It's their fourth studio album. Just right out of the way, it's an amazing album. Very different from anything they had released kind of up to that point, but definitely worth checking out. I think there is. I listened to, for the sake of this video, just the original release on Apple Music, but there's like an expanded edition on Apple Music as well. Just I think it was like a 2014 re-release with a ton of just extra stuff. But for this video, I listened to the original 1998 release. We got some notes here about this album, and then we'll just kind of discuss that kind of stuff here. So, first released June 2nd, 1998. Again, it's their fourth studio album. And Billy Corgan, in an interview after this came out, basically, this is a quote from him, said it was basically the music of, quote, a band falling apart. And the band was going through a lot of rough times, like personal problems between members, members having their own issues like outside of the music. I remember reading that Billy Corgan was going through a divorce at the time. His mother had also, I think, like recently passed away as well. So he had some stuff going on. Jimmy Chamberlin, their drummer, was fired from the band a couple years earlier for, I believe, him and I think like another member of the band had overdosed, and Jimmy Chamberlin was fired for that, but the other musician sadly passed away from it. So Jimmy Chamberlin was fired, so he was not even on this album. They used guest drummers occasionally. They used more drum machines. There's like basically they went in to the band with just the three kind of core members of Billy Corgan, Darcy Retzky, and James Iha were basically the only three Smashing Pumpkins members in the group at this time. I think Jimmy Chamberlin rejoined the group a couple years later, but then the band broke up shortly after that. And then a few years after that, they eventually got back together. I think they're still together now because I saw them, I want to say, not quite a year ago. I think it'll be like a year in like November. Saw them and Jane's Addiction together, and it was like a really good show. But this kind of I think like success, I don't want to say went to their heads, but definitely they were feeling kind of the stress of being as successful as they were during this time because they had released three albums up to this point. They had released Gish in 1991, Siamese Dream in 1993, and then Melancholy in the Infinite Sadness in 1995. And I think, like Gish and Siamese Dream are really good albums. They were pretty successful. I want to say like Siamese Dream, I think, sold more than Gish did, and then Melancholy Infinite Sadness. I don't know the overall sales numbers for it, but that was a very, like, I want to say both those albums combined probably sold like close to like 10 million copies. I don't know if how recent that figure is, but it was like Gish or Siamese Dream was like in like the high 4 millions, as was Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. And I think they were, like fairly successful before Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I had only known a couple songs, but I really got into them with their third album. Because I remember it was like the first music video I saw for it was Bullet with Butterfly Wings. And that song is just amazing. It's one of my favorite Smashing Pumpkins songs, like probably ever. And it goes just really hard. It's an awesome song. But the following year, from like they had like a big tour they did. They were kind of everywhere in 1996. I remember watching them winning a bunch of MTV, like VMAs for that album and the music videos for it. So they were definitely like, I think when time came for this, there was like I said, personal issues going on between the members, like personal issues like outside of work generally, but also just kind of just the pressure of success. And then this is kind of the album that kind of came out of that, and it's a completely different album than anything they had done up to this point. This one is definitely a much more subdued album. It's really, I wouldn't even call it a rock album. There's some, like, maybe like some rock elements here and there, but it's definitely much more like electronica focused than rock focused. It's actually a very relaxing album, even if like the content of the like Billy Corgan quote was quoted as saying, "This is like a band, like an album from a band, like quote a band falling apart." Um, Definitely like very different from anything they had released up to that point. Let's see here. Like I said, Jimmy Chamberlain was fired from that. It was more subdued. This album wasn't as nearly as successful as the two previous albums, the Siamese Dream or Melancholy, but it's gotten a cult following now. I think from what I was reading, um, and like I said, it got critically acclaimed, but it didn't do as well commercially as those other albums did, and I think it was kind of very divisive between the fans. Some fans loved it. Some fans didn't think it was like rock enough, that it was too different from anything they released. And I think I have another quote here. Corgan basically, Billy Corgan said this is kind of during a phase where he had to quote prove that he was an artist, and then later it kind of reflected to me like if you had to prove you're an artist, it's kind of like in the quote like the death knell of an artist is basically having to prove that you're an artist. So I think this album was like them trying to prove that they were more than just rock music, and I think it ended up working out really well. This album is amazing. I don't know necessarily know where I would like rank it between all their albums, but it's definitely very different from like some of their other stuff. But it's also equally as good in many ways, I think. Let's see here. The band moved to LA to record it, and like I think the plan was that they were all just going to get a house and live together. And from what I was reading, James Iha decided not to do that. I think he moved out there with them and they basically just lived on his own. And he rarely visited the house that I guess Darcy and Billy were renting or whatever it was. But like I said, critically acclaimed. Let's bring up some of the critical reviews for it here. Some of the reviews. So, for example, All Music looks like gives it a three and a half or a because it looks like yeah 3.5 out of 5. Chicago Sun gives it 4 out of 4. Entertainment Weekly gave it a B plus there. The Guardian gives it a 4 out of 5. The LA Times gives it a 3.5 out of 4. Pitchfork gave it an 8.1 out of 10 for the original release and an 8.5 for the 2014 remaster or re-release. Rolling Stone gave it looks like that's 3.5 out of 5, and then Select gave it a 3 out of 5, and Spin gave it looks like a 5 out of 10. So like and then also Enemy gave it a 5 out of 10 as well. So some somewhat divisive reviews. Like I said, some fans were kind of just like kind of met on it. Some really loved it, and it's definitely if you're going into it thinking it's going to be more of the same of their three previous albums, it's definitely not that at all. So it's definitely like you're going to. It could have been like kind of like a rude awakening for some fans, just thinking they were going to get another rock album when they got this when they get this album instead. It's definitely not a rock album. I wouldn't consider it to be a rock album at all. Let's take a look at the track listing here. So comes in at about what's the length of the album? I think it says right here it's about 73 minutes, so it's a little bit long, but it's pretty good. So track one we have again this is the 1998 release. The 2014 release has just so much stuff I don't really won't be able to go through all of that. But track one is To Sheila. Track two is Ava Adore. Ava Adore. Track three is Perfect. Track four is Daphne Descends. Yeah, Daphne Descends. Track five is Once Upon a Time. Track six is Tear. Track seven is Crestfallen. Track eight is Apples and Oranges, but Oranges is spelled a little bit Oranjes. Track 9 is Pug. Track 10 is The Tale of Dusty and Pistol Pete. Track 11 is Annie Dog. Track 12 is Shame. Track 13 is Behold the Nightmare. Track 14 is For Martha. Track 15 is Blank Page, and track 16 is called 17, and that was only like a little 17-second long bit there. And then in 2014, they did a CD and DVD reissue, so it looks like it's got CD one is the stereo version remastered, from what I can tell. Disc two is the mono remastering. Track three is In a State of Passage, and that's some like demos and things like that. And track four is Chalices, Palaces, and Deep Pools. That looks like it's other kind of like reimagined versions of some of the songs and maybe some demos as well. CD five is Malice, Callous, and Fools, which is looks like it's just more content. And then I know there's like a live, out like from the Fox Theater. There's like the DVD has like features like a concert from looks like an August 1998 concert as well. So if you, I would listen to the original version first, and then the deluxe edition just has a ton of extra content, like a lot of content. I think both of them are available on Apple Music, because if you go to Apple Music, and I use Apple Music, it might be different on Spotify, but you go to Apple Music, you look at this album, it'll probably bring you to the deluxe edition. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can then change that up to the other version that they have, which is this 1998 release of it. And like I said, this is just an incredibly well put together album. Even if like the band, like the Billy said, the band, this is the sound of the band falling apart, it still sounds really good. I think knowing kind of like what the band was going through when they were in the process of recording this kind of maybe just adds to it a little bit, because it's definitely a much more like somber album. Like the songs are usually a little bit longer than some of the rock songs on some of their other albums. I think the lyrics are definitely like more personal, probably to, well, obviously to Billy Corgan mostly, because he's the one that wrote all of them. But like I said, he was going through a divorce at the time, and his mother had just passed away as well. So just not great times for him personally. But I think sometimes rough times like for like anybody, or in music specifically, create just amazing music. Like I think we saw that earlier this year with the Foo Fighters. Like they went through a very, very rough year last year, and then ended up putting out this year with, but here we are, their new album, ended up putting out one of their best albums in a long time. But let me see what it's called. I think I had the name of it correct, but yeah, But Here We Are is the new album. But kind of to tie it back into the Smashing Pumpkins, like they went through a rough time and came out with one of the best albums ever. Um, Smashing Pumpkins did the same thing in 1998, going through what seems like probably like the highs were really good for them and the lows were really low. So like they went from, like I said, when they came out with Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, I think they were pretty successful already, but that album kind of put them into the stratosphere. So they were kind of riding high on that, and then just had a lot of personal things that kind of brought them down. But out of it came this amazing album. So that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back again in a few days with another movie. Don't know exactly what movie that's going to be yet, but we'll be doing a video for that. So like I said, that's going to do it for now. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.